And once you get actually into the day, I've prospected 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for the past 20 years. All of my work and leads come from self-generation. In sales, you have a couple options. You could either pay for business, you could sit around and wait for it, or you could go out and get it. Those are the three major options that you can choose. I've fortunately was able to link up with a really great mentor and coach when I was in my first or second year in the business. This is over 20 years ago. And I adopted his program and I followed it the best I could. I'm not perfect, but worked hard to try to master that. And it has to do with just telling the truth and working really hard and working on skill set.
Welcome, my fellow Flow Masters, to another episode of the Cash Flow Authority podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jansen, founder of the Flow Authority. This show is for high-performing professionals who did everything right: the degree, the career, the income, but you still feel like there's just another level waiting. And here we explore how real estate can become that next challenge worth building so you can take ownership of your future and create a life by design. Today we're joined with a very special guest, Mr. Patrick Southern, and Patrick is the founder of Properties by Southern. With over 20 years of experience and more than 3,000 closed transactions, he is the only agent in Hudson County, New Jersey area to have represented Dixon Advisory USA in repositioning and selling a REIT portfolio, which we'll get into what that means in just a second, as individual retail assets, overseeing the sale of millions of dollars in real estate. Welcome, Patrick. Really excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you inviting me on. So we'll hopefully have a nice little afternoon together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get into life of a realtor, man, you're gonna have calls. I love it.
No, I just muted it. So I've done that in advance.
You're good. Maybe before we get into kind of the questions I got and everything, maybe just summarize what is a REIT. Because obviously, I know what this means, but I had to look up what's Dixon Advisory USA, what's a REIT portfolio, what does this mean, individual retail assets? Maybe just give a rundown of that.
Of course. So I've been lucky enough over all of these years. I've been involved in a lot of different transactions, a lot of different people, a lot of different scenarios. And this happens to be an interesting one. Dixon Advisory was an Australian company that established a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust, that was tagged as U.S. Masters here in the United States. And in 2009, during the collapse of the financial market here, they had some insight to come over, of all places, to Jersey City, New Jersey. And they started picking up distressed homes at that time in 2009, 10, 11, 12. And it was a very scary time. I was in the business at that point, and it was a very scary time for real estate. However, if you had capital to deploy, there were things that you could really buy. And at that time, Jersey City was not the city it is right now. It was definitely in an infantile stage of growth, and it was climbing, but not where it is today. So the opportunities were great. And basically what happens, there's a lot of different structures that happen with a REIT, but for this particular one, the idea was you get in, you amass some properties, you stabilize, and then there's an exit period that you want to get out, and then you turn them. I was very aware of them coming into the market for sure. And when it was time to exit, I got tapped to help them exit that entire portfolio, which took us, we're just finishing up now, took us close to a decade. There was about over 700 properties to sell. And it was a pretty interesting experience to be able to whiteboard that many properties within a similar marketplace to make sure that we didn't cannibalize ourselves with what we were selling. From a brokerage standpoint, it was very stimulating and just professionally challenging to be able to figure out how to do that. But we were very successful in the one-off sale. So we could have group sold them and bundled them at a discount, which is typically how those things go down. But we've elected to really do a one-by-one transaction and did great with them.
Nice. So those are fully sold off. Are you still working on that? And how many?
I probably have my last 70 that will blow through this year, maybe 60, depending on how many contracts we've taken already this year. But we'll finish it up this year. It's bittersweet, I will say that. It's been a fun run.
Yeah, you're gonna have to start getting new leads. That's probably been keeping your funnel.
I'm good at that.
Yeah.
It's good. Listen, it's always nice to have a couple different buckets of things. That's just one bucket of property that comes through.
Yeah, for sure. So after all of that, and then you've done over 3,000 transactions, which is that's a ton. I can only imagine the amount of effort and lessons learned and things you've had over that. But what
For
habits?
sure.
Yeah. So what habits and routines have driven that long-term success, or have you picked up over that time?
So it's a very simple answer, just not simple to do. It really comes down to just discipline of schedule and timing and how you really allocate your time. And that has to do with so many different components, from how you start your day to clearing yourself for your energy to head into that day, to be able to how you block your time for prospecting and be able to find work. So I could get as granular as you would like with that program. I'm one of those guys that are up at 4:30 in the morning and at the gym early, work on mindset and physical, and nutrition's important. And I don't drink or eat sugar or any of that sort to keep myself as clean and focused as possible. And then by the time I get to the office, I've done a lot of hard things already that morning as far as getting myself going. So the physical act of getting to work seems easier than the morning I've set up for myself of the things that I do in the early hours. And again, it's a lot of working out or ice baths or saunas and meditation and you name it. And like I said, I could get really critical on step by step with it. And then once you get actually into the day, I've prospected 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for the past 20 years. All of my work and leads come from self generation. In sales, you have a couple options. You could either pay for business, you could sit around and wait for it, or you could go out and get it. Those are the three major options that you can choose. I've fortunately was able to link up with a really great mentor and coach when I was in my first or second year in the business. This is over 20 years ago. And I adopted his program and I followed it the best I could. I'm not perfect, but worked hard to try to master that. And it has to do with just telling the truth and working really hard and working on skill set. And when I was younger, the thing that I thought about the most was, as long as I got good, no one can take that away from me. The environment can't take that away. The market can't take that away. And if I got good at my job, I could navigate any field. So all of those transactions that have occurred have just come from hard work of prospecting and looking for it. And at the same time, trying to adopt little skills, whether that be, I made it a really big effort to focus on new construction development years ago. So I run, yep. So I run the largest condo sale in Jersey City, Hudson County, for a very long time. And I'm with those developers from ground up to, I think you're a civil engineer as well, Chris, right? So spend time with you guys early in the process. We get our unit optimizations right to make sure we're maximizing price per square foot on the exit, help them with all their debt decks, everything that goes up to it, all the way until the actual sale of those units. Similar to if you were to make it to the NCAA finals as a basketball team, once you get to that game, it just is what it is, right? There's no more films you could watch. There's no more workouts you can do. There's no more drills you could run. And it's really everything from that season that preps you for that game, right? And it's just what it's going to be is what it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
Development's pretty similar. There's a old proverb that says, well begun is half done. And that's the same kind of thing with development or business strategy or whatever it is, really prepping and getting the reps in as much as possible.
Well begun is half done.
Begun is half done. I think it's Socrates that said that.
Oh, okay, okay. I'll have to
Yeah.
look that one up. Nice.
But
Yeah,
I think about that statement all the time because that is really such a foundation of both work principles or task principles or your day, even how you started out is really
yeah.
what the flow is going to be for the rest of the day for you.
Love that. Yeah. We could have like multiple episodes just on this because you talked
I
about
could talk about
health, you
this
talked
forever.
about sales, you talked about development and yeah, all this stuff, which is really cool. And like you said, yes, I am a civil engineer. I recently quit the day job with that, but that's because we already started a development company that we're going to be building new construction in
Great.
Dallas. And yeah, so the stuff that you've done, you mentioned condos. So are these big, we're looking to do multifamily, but we're still figuring out exactly what that looks like. Your condo units, a lot of times those are very similar to multifamily development. Is that?
It's really the same thing. So how I got to really get onto that is Obviously, I've sold a lot of real estate, and with money that you make in real estate, I've invested back in real estate, right?
Uh-huh.
So I bought a bunch, started out buying some small things and some apartment buildings here and there, and a little bit of larger apartment buildings, and a piece of land, and then getting entitlements. And before I knew it, I was building new construction rental projects. So I built a handful of those myself, self-storage. So
Oh,
I
nice.
have many lives. I've done a lot of different stuff. My main job is real estate sales for sure, but on the side, there's other projects that you do for your family and generational, wealth to take care of people the best that you can and try to really create a good life for when the sales are over, you have something to fall back on, right?
Yeah.
So I learned through that personally. When you have a personal life experience that way and you're in that profession, it's very easy, helpful, and relatable that I could go into that as a salesperson to my developer clients and be able to really help them from ground up, not just from some book that I read, but
Mm-hmm.
from being part of the process. I know what all of those components are firsthand. So when we do it together, I'm able to serve them at a highest level, which is why I've been so successful in the new development standpoint, why I partnered up with Ryan Serhant for a lot of the new development stuff here in Jersey City and Hudson County and throughout New Jersey. So we're building that from a sales standpoint. But to your question, it's the money is made, to overly simplify it, in unit optimization, right? Design efficiencies. So you could have the same piece of property with the same size property with the same similar kind of features that it has, but if you get your square footages of those units off, there's chunk prices for all of these things. And I'll give you an example for rental and I'll give you an example for condo sale. If you were to have a condo or a rental that was $3,000 a month or something like that for a one bedroom, let's say, in my marketplace, if that rental was 680 square feet or it was 750 square feet, it's still roughly $3,000 a month, yet you're building a bigger unit, more materials, more everything
Mm-hmm.
that go into it. So optimization is really important to dial that in because understanding your chunk prices both for rental and for sale are the start of design, and then you back into what the actual building will look like from there. It
Yeah.
paints the way
Yeah.
for you, so you go in reverse.
Gotcha. I
Yeah.
wonder if that's in some bigger cities why I feel like now that I'm looking at apartments in Dallas and
Yeah.
I haven't rented in several years, but looking at that, I feel like the units are just getting smaller and smaller as they build.
Yeah,
But that's probably a big part of it, right? Because
there's actually two parts to that, right? Part one is going to be there's got to be efficiency for the build from a cost standpoint. Land is getting more expensive, materials are getting more expensive. A lot of times going through the zoning process with the either neighborhood associations or municipality are getting more lengthy. And if you've got hot money coming in from the beginning and you're paying on that debt already, you've got to get things moving. So yes, there's that component, but they also try to make it smaller a lot of times to try to bring the price point down too. Even though they look expensive, and I know they are expensive, and there's not a better word for this than making it more affordable because affordable housing has a lot of different kind of associations to it. When
mm,
they're smaller and they accomplish the same thing, you could try to keep the cost down a little bit, which tries to be a little bit better for the consumer, which then is helpful with your occupancy, which then your retention is better. So it's like a because a lot of people that get
yeah,
into development right off the bat, they think go as big and as bad as possible.
yeah,
And you learn the hard way. That's an expensive mindset to have. You really got to make sure that market is going to absorb it the way you think it's going to be. And you're not just building for ego, you're building for spreadsheet. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. Nice. Okay. This is great nuggets. I'm literally taking a lot of notes here. Well, you can't see because it's blurred out, but
I'm glad.
yeah, because we're
I'm glad,
actually,
man. Listen,
I would say we're looking for like an advisor because I've been doing engineering for 9 years and then my 5 years of school as well. Lots of site development, but nothing in multifamily, nothing really in real estate. I guess it's all real estate, nothing in apartments and residential real estate.
yeah,
And then the other two guys they've built a lot of single family. One of them, that's his whole business. And he's done really well for himself doing that, but it's mostly single family, some duplexes. So it's just a different world and getting into multifamily and the bigger stuff. And yeah, these are the things we're starting to think about because we're just at first running numbers at more of a high level and just putting cost per square foot and like for the actual building, but then looking at, okay, how much additional area, how much area is that going to take up versus how much, of a parking lot do we need? How big of a road do we need? Do we need a detention basin for stormwater? All these different elements
Sure.
that wouldn't necessarily be part of a single family build, and then we're trying to add those costs back in. But yeah, like, okay, how big are the units? And to me, I'm like, 2 bedroom, 800 square feet. That's what I have. That's what I like. That's what I'm used to living in. But they're like, I don't know, that seems a little big. We could probably do less. I'm like, ah. So but
Yeah,
that
I
make a
mean,
huge difference. These levers, it makes a
so,
huge
so
difference.
such a huge difference. And at the end of the day, it also, it can't just be as granular as make them smaller, you'll sell them, right?
Right. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
the layouts have to be so tight. They have to function. We've all been in
Hmm.
apartments, condos, or whatever you want to call it, that's 1,000 square feet and it's laid out poorly. And it's just
Yeah.
lackluster. And then you get into something where it's like the inside of a boat and it's perfectly compartmentalized at 800 square feet. And you say, oh my gosh, this place is incredible what it does. So it's all about the function of it as well. But I help people in other markets. I just was on a call with someone through the Sirhan organization that needed some help with this down in South Carolina. I'm happy to speak with you about specifics when you get something that comes off. I have connections throughout the whole country, and
Oh, okay.
I know a lot about how all this works. It's a really important part of the process. Spend your time now and your mistakes now on paper.
Yeah.
And even though if they're costly, having to redo plans or something like that, it's nowhere near as costly as getting it wrong.
Right.
And every single project is a learning step. I always give the description of building apartment buildings in real estate is almost like music is, right?
Hmm.
There's 12 notes and it's just how you arrange them, and everyone rips everyone else off. You hear something that sounds good, you say, ooh, that sounds good. I'm going to play a variation of that and make my own song.
Yeah.
So real estate's the kind of the same thing. You see someone that does something, you say, ooh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to take this from that guy, that from that guy, that from
Uh-huh.
that guy. I'm going to bundle into mine. Now it's my own thing, and everyone's going to rip me off, and then that just continues. And
Yeah.
by rip off ideas,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
but that's really how this whole thing works and how it evolves and how it gets
Gotcha.
just gets better over time.
Yeah. Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this another, it's a point, but it's another question. So I'm a coach, and one of the kind of leads, prospects, whatever you want to call it, that I have, she came to my free webinar. She watched the webinar, and then I called her. We had a few conversations. She's actually, I don't know where she is out there, but I'm pretty sure it was either Jersey or DC, which is probably very different. I don't know my
Sure.
Northeast United States well enough. But anyways, she told me she wants to get into development and affordable housing, and I'm trying to figure out how to relay this to her, and I'm like, hey, I can help you because I've done she's never done anything with real estate, never bought a single property, never done any development. She's not an engineer, like none of that stuff. And I'm like, hey, I've at least bought some properties. I've done the engineering side, and now I'm also starting this business to develop land in Texas. So definitely I can help you, like, learn the tools, the foundational steps to get started. But if you just want to just go from zero and now you want to start a land development company, that's like a massive undertaking. Not that she can't do it. Just wanted to be realistic. Maybe you guys would be a good connection, by the way, if she's out there by you. But
Not, we'll see. Well, depending on where there's a lot of
yeah,
people, and I don't know this person, but
yeah,
there's a lot of people that want to get into many different things.
yeah,
Unfortunately, the steps to get to the finish line of success, they're not willing
yeah,
to do.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
steps are very hard. I'm still at the situation where I'm 20 plus years in this business. I've never put more stress on my schedule than I'm doing now. I've never worked more hard physically to get myself and mind ready for work. I've never worked harder on skill improvement. It is an
yeah,
entrepreneurialism and sales, and being a self generator is a constant self
right,
evaluation and upgrade.
right.
And we're also in a business where, if you think you've figured it out, you're going to wake up the next day and the world is past you.
Yeah,
So it's a forward thinking type world, both on the sales side, both on the development side and everything else. So you really have to,
right.
make sure that all that stuff is ingrained, that you're going to be stepping into that world.
Yeah, we had a lot of back and forth, and then she basically emailed me and was like, "Hey, I decided." It's hilarious because on my webinar, it was, I think, the top 3 mistakes most real estate investors make, and the last one was a scarcity mindset. And there's like a whole list of things under that as well, like you're trying to do it cheap or free, and you're trying to do it on your own. It's like, those of us who do real estate know, like, it's very hard, almost impossible, if not impossible, to like really build something meaningful on your own. And then she messaged me and was like, I'm just gonna watch some YouTube videos and read some books and I'll figure it out. I'm like, okay. Anyways, I don't know if you have anything to say on that. You've touched on a lot of this already, but I'm sure you have a similar mindset that I have around that concept.
Yeah, I think I understand the question that you're asking, and my answer is typically one that is not overly exciting for people, but it's accurate, which is you've got to go out and do things and try them and fail and find out why it failed, go back, fix it, then go back out, try it again, and just fail maybe a little less, but you still failed.
Yeah.
Like we are, the way that I view all of this stuff and many things in life, and I'm not trying to be too hippy dippy over my answer, but failure to me is not trying something, right? The act of having it not work out is not really failure. It just didn't work out. Or having something go wrong means it just didn't go right. And you get back up and you figure out how to make it right. That's the whole journey. And there are people, unfortunately, that are stuck in a cycle where they're getting ready to get ready so that when they get ready, they can be ready to get ready so that they're ready to get ready. So soon one day they'll be ready and they'll start.
Yeah.
And that's a tough cycle that people live in, when you just got to get out and do it in a smart way and really try to be calculated about it. You're not going to take all of your funds and turn around and go try to develop a piece of property on your own. You've never done anything before. It'd probably be a bad idea. It'd be an expensive idea.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere.
For sure.
Yeah.
Love that. So going back now to the current market state.
Yeah.
What does 2026 real estate market look like for investors?
I thought you were going to ask that, so I just wrote a couple things down just so I could try to hang on them a little bit. It's going to be really interesting. We have come from a situation where lending has just been really tough. You know, for the debt coverage ratio limits, what the sellers actually want to sell for, and the amount of capital that's needed to be able to make it work for the banks has just been disproportionate. You've seen a lot of like family office type stuff get involved in a lot of purchases where they act basically a lot more like private equity firms than ever before. And I think that's been a real answer to what the lending environment has been out there. I think that in anything, there's going to be opportunity, but you have to know what you're looking for. Chris, I always give an example when people ask me, I'm looking for a deal or I want to invest in real estate, and they say things like this, which I understand what they're trying to describe to me, right? They'd like to get into some sort of real estate, and there's a couple buckets that you could choose from. You could join a syndication, which is putting some money into someone else's deal that you feel comfortable about. You could buy a speculation property, which is, I'm going to buy this. It's not going to make any cash flow for me, but I hope to sell it one day and make more money, right? Or you could buy a cash flow property, right?
Yep.
And in all of those three kind of categories, there's subcategories. And the one thing that I always tell clients that come to me, because I don't have any interest in convincing someone of what to do. Like, I'm not in the business of convincing someone to buy.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of helping people learn what they want, understand the pros and cons of that, come up with a game plan, feel comfortable with that game plan. And once they're good with that game plan, we execute and find that property that fits it, right? And the perfect example I could always give you, and the one that I give buyers when they come into my world asking about this stuff, is, if Chris, if you and I were in a restaurant together and someone walked through the front door, right? And I went, boy, that person's attractive. And you would say, no, they're not. In that moment, we're both
right.
Why? Because we know what's attractive to us, right? Now, we can do that with cars or watches or art or you name it. You and I can have totally different opinions on that stuff, and we're both right. When you go to buy an investment property or a deal or a development, you have to be so specific with what you're attracted to and what works. That's cash flow, the amount of time you want to spend with it, what the tenant situation is going to be, the repairs that might be needed. All of that stuff comes into play.
Yep.
So you shouldn't buy anything until you really can determine and identify what it looks like to you, right? Because if you don't have that game plan together, one of two things happen. They're both not good. One is you buy something just based out of inertia. You're in the process. You got to buy something because you need to buy something. You end up buying a property. And you wake up 2 years later and you go, this thing's a pain in the neck. I didn't want this. This
Yeah.
is not what I thought it was. Now that I know this, I would never have bought this place. Like, it's a real pain, you know? So that's problem one. Problem two is if you don't know that instantaneous, that person's attractive, or that car looks great, or I love that watch, or whatever it might be, right? When a deal comes along, it's going to take you too long to evaluate if it's good or not.
Mm-hmm.
While you're evaluating it, someone's going to take it right away from you, or you're in a multiple bid scenario because you're too slow.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really know your business plan, when something comes across, you go, that's it, I'll take it. And you're like, don't you want to see it? Nope, I'm ready to go. Why? Because you have due diligence and everything else to make sure that the cover actually is the book. So you got plenty of time to figure that out, but you know right away that's what you like to own. And until you're clear on that, you can't really identify what a deal is. And you're just slinging property to people, which is, I'm not in that business, you know?
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. There's all sorts of terms for it, right? Your buy box, or your, in the investor world, or your buy box that I coach my clients on their having an investor identity, like figuring out what your identity is, which is really just that. What do you want to be passive or active? Or more of these speculative type deals? Do you want to do flips, wholesale, buy and hold, long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental? All these different scenarios, rent by the room, and then multifamily, single family, commercial, land development. There's so much, right? So it's, yeah, you get out there. The first group that I joined, which was fantastic. I learned so much from this group, but over 90 classes because they got something for everything. And I guess a lot of us do really well in that group because they have everything you need to learn. But a lot of people get paralyzed because it's, wow, what do I do? There's so much to learn. And you go take one class and they're like, oh, you should probably go take this class so you can learn more about that. And then they go take that class. And then you're just bouncing around taking all these classes. And it's when do you actually know, when you know enough to actually go do something.
Totally.
Not to discredit, that company's amazing. And they actually had a whole class on your investor identity. That's where I got that from. Credit to them.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. But yeah, I spent almost an entire year, actually pretty much over an entire year, without buying a single property because I went from doing rentals, long-term rentals, duplexes, which I loved and I was good at. And then somebody sold me on, you should come join this wholesale group because we're going to teach you how to go find your own deals. You don't need to rely on realtors and wholesalers or any of that. You're going to go find it yourself. We're going to do it all across the country and you're going to get this much money per deal. And I don't know, I spent 6 months in that group working really hard. I did get one deal under contract, hardly made any money on it, right? It was on the opposite side of the country. And then it just totally distracted me. And then in addition to that, like I was looking everywhere, and so I didn't know any of these markets or anything about any of these markets. I knew nobody in these markets. It was just, I'm a big proponent of that too, of figure out your niche, I'm even doing this in the coaching business. Who is your niche market? Figure out exactly what your ideal client looks like. And in the case of real estate, what your ideal property looks like and where it is and all that good stuff. Yeah, it's definitely helpful.
The nice thing about being clear on many things, investments or your schedule, or there's so many different topics on your workout, your eating, whatever it might be, right? Is a lot of people like to think that like having a plan or a clear plan is to tell you what to do. And sure, that's definitely a piece of it, right? But the other side is it allows you to change things, right? If you have a plan and an investing plan and you think that you have it perfect, and as time goes along, you're like, you know what? It's not really this. If I were just to change this and I want to add this to it, it's a constantly working playbook. But until you get that foundation, you don't really have anything to change because you don't know what you're changing. And like the same thing goes like in the sales business for me. I have a very specific schedule that I stand by. But like life happens, right? Kids and things to do and everything else. And it doesn't mean that you just get things just drop off your schedule. It means you got to maneuver it, right? Oh, if I need to do this today, what goes in that time frame, I need to fill this in here, which means I need to move this over here. So at the end of the week, it all gets done. But without that plan, you lose things. And the developer kind of mindset of knowing your profile and stuff is really similar to that idea.
Yeah. Amazing. All right, last question, and then we're going to have to wrap things up. Unfortunately, it's been a great conversation, though. As far as evaluating deals, how are you finding true value in today's market, in today's deals for what you're seeing out there in the market?
Yeah. So it's a really good question, and it is a good add-on to what we were just discussing, right? So depending on what kind of deal, and I'll break them into three main categories again, like a syndication deal, a cash flow deal, or a speculative deal, right? I think that the underwriting of those deals has to be very critical, right? You have to really spend time and look at the worst case scenario of those deals.
Yeah.
So you understand what it is. I think a lot of people get into these rental deals and they see it and they said, I could rent it for this, I could do this, I could do that. And yes, it underwrites at that. But they don't look at the other side of it, which is what's been the biggest percentage rental pullback in the past 5 years. Let's say it's 20%. Now run your numbers at that. What has been the annual increase in insurance over the past 5 years? Future pace, what that is going to be, and just see what those underwriting metrics really look like. And then I think that you have to be really disciplined on what your core foundation of what the investment is supposed to do and not be afraid to pass if it doesn't fit that criteria. Are there deals that I passed on and clients have passed on that they kick themselves on? Sure. But they've also lived another day because of it. And there's been plenty of times where that intuition and taking the business approach to it has worked in their favor also.
Yes.
Probably more in that direction than the losses are. And quite frankly, I would rather lose a deal that was good on what I thought was healthy underwriting than jump into something that is bad. I think I'm like a lot of people, I don't come from money or anything like that. There's no get out of jail free card if I blow it. So every deal is really impactful. And I think that one thing that investors can keep in mind when looking at these deals is like the compound effect is very real. Take your time, get the right one, then build on the next one, and then build on the next one. If you keep your head down and you put together a disciplined plan, it really doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere at first because you're like, gosh, is this going slow?
Yeah.
But you're going to blink and 10 years will go by and you're going to look back and you're going to go, how the heck did I get all of this?
Right.
And that's really the position you want to be in, because they will just build off each other. Now, the property that you bought 10 years ago is probably prime for a refinance. It's probably making too much money from a tax standpoint. You're going to refi that property in a respectful, ethical, responsible, healthy way, however you want to describe it. Pull some money out. Now 10-year ago property buys year 11 property.
Yeah.
That's your down payment for that. And that just starts to recycle that kind of machine that you can build from an investment standpoint and a tax structure standpoint, but it doesn't come from being cavalier on behavior. You really got to make sure you know what you're looking for. It's going to check those boxes and that you're disciplined with your underwriting, that it hits your target goals.
Yeah, love that. And something that I see in multifamily space is, and I'm sure this is common everywhere, I would imagine, but I look a lot in Wisconsin. That's where most of my properties are. That's where I grew up, and I love the cash flow you get out there. Yeah. And I'm looking at like anywhere from 16 doors to 50 doors. So that range. So it sounds big, but it's really smaller. It's still considered smaller multifamily. And there's a lot of still mom and pop owners to those types of deals.
Sure.
Our small partnerships that just don't do this professionally. And so many of them don't have good financial records, and they don't have a solid T12, trailing 12 profit and loss statement.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And so all we have is what the broker gives me of, here's the rent roll and here's our pro forma. And we're like, this is great. This looks great, but how is it actually performing? And they don't really know. And so then it's, how do you even analyze a worst case scenario? So that's why with those, I think it's really important to, a lot of brokers will seemingly, it seems like they like to value these multifamily homes based off future value. And I was always
Of course they do.
Yeah, of course, yes. I'd be like, oh, it's an 8 cap. And I'm like,
those darn brokers.
Yeah, it's an 8 cap, and I'm like, I look at the numbers, I'm like, it's like a 5 cap in Manitowoc,
They're talking
Wisconsin.
about 2030.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it will be an 8 cap after we spend all that time and headache and money into it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, anyways,
but you're absolutely right. In that scenario, for people that are in that space, that's where something you said earlier, Chris, was really important. which is you're talking about being too far away in market that you didn't know, and that was like a deal that you weren't really thrilled about, and
Yeah.
when you sourced your own from the wholesale type situation.
Yeah.
Going back
Yeah.
to your Wisconsin example, that's a marketplace you do know. You're from there, right? You're familiar with it. So in a worst case scenario, if you think the deal is good and it pencils, you just take something like that, you take all the rents that they have and throw them out the window. And you just self-evaluate, if this thing was everyone left tomorrow,
Yeah.
what does this really look like? And
Mm-hmm.
start from scratch with that idea.
Yeah.
And then from there, you base your model off those numbers
Yeah.
and see where it is. And you can't do that unless you know that marketplace, or you have a broker that you actually trust that's telling you the truth and not just trying to push you in a deal.
Yeah.
The benefit that I've always had and do long term is I've got the greatest past clients, I think, over anyone. And that's where a lot of these transactions come from. And that's because I've never tried to stick anyone just into a deal on any level, a house, a condo, a multifamily, whatever it is. Why? Because if you do it the right way, they'll come back. Their friends will come back. And that's where the long game applies in the brokerage world if you play it the right way.
Yeah.
Plus, I'm not wired to take advantage of anyone. Like, I don't have that gene. But that's the long game, which builds the business in the long term. And in the long run, you have a much more sustainable sales business for it, similar to what we're talking about with building assets and investments for 2026 in the future. Is if you're disciplined with that and you play the long game, it will pay off. It just takes some time.
Yeah.
And I know we're not in a world where people want to wait these days.
Yeah.
It seems like they all want it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
for sure. Hey, if anybody out there is in the Jersey market, now you know who you can reach out to, okay? And if Patrick can't help you, I'm sure he can connect you with someone who can.
100%. We know people all over the country through the Serhant network, so we could help you with a lot of good folks.
Very good. All right. Hey, before we wrap, where can people find you and connect with you, Patrick?
Sure. My website's easy, which is propertiesbysouthern.com. That's propertiesbysouthern.com. And then I'm always easy for a phone call or a text at 201-232-3381, which is not ever too far away from me.
Nice, nice.
So
you're on social media too, I'm assuming?
Yeah, the handle is at propertiesbysouthern.com on Instagram. Yep.
Awesome.
Or LinkedIn. You can find me at all those.
Cool. All right. Hey, thanks, Patrick. It's been great. Thanks for coming on the show. Really looking forward to this airing and seeing what comes of it. But yeah, great conversation, great connection. Like I said, we could do a bunch of episodes on just all getting really granular on any of these one topics. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
You bet. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Cash Flow Authority podcast. We hope the insights shared today help you take the next step toward optimizing your finances and building sustainable wealth. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. It helps other entrepreneurs and investors discover the show. And don't forget to catch the next episode for more insights. Until then, keep mastering your cash flow.